morning. It is Sunday, February 1st, 2026, and I'm out for a walk with Marko, who's a 7-year-old kind of Corso. Had him since he was 9 months. And we typically be walking with the other member of our pack. Her name is Matilda. She's 4 years old and she's a French bulldog, but it's a little too cold today. Not for Marko and hopefully not for me, but for her certainly. It's about 15 degrees, but it is beautiful. It's a beautiful, bright, almost completely clear Sunday morning. And so taking advantage of this break in the weather to do my outdoor exercise and take Marko for a walk. And fortunately, I know how Marko handles the cold pretty well, because when we moved to Las Vegas, and especially during COVID, Marko was my constant companion up in the mountains. And so a lot of people might not know this, but in Las Vegas, the spring mountains are, I think they're top out at almost 8,000 feet above sea level. So it's pretty high, and they're about maybe 5,500. I mean, you can certainly fact check me on that, but nevertheless, it's a good elevation. And so some years it stays snow covered at the highest parts of the range all the way through June or July. And so Marko and I would go up there as often as we could on the weekends and hike around. In particular, there's this place called Upper and Lower Bristlecone Pines, where they have this stand of beautiful ancient bristlecone pine trees that are native to that area, that are among, if not the oldest living organisms on the planet. Certainly, many have been recorded to be over 2,000 years old, and some might even be longer lived than that. But Mark and I would go up there, and the Upper and Lower Bristlecone Loop is about 7 miles, and so we would hike there kind of in the first break of the snow, or after the first snowfall, and Marko would cut trail. And there were definitely times when I was worried that maybe I'd gotten us in over our head, but we always managed to pull through. And so he's been my trusted companion and protector, and I've tried to be his as well, his provider, his protector, and certainly somebody that has benefited from his companionship and love for over 6 years now. And so it's a good morning to be outside. I actually hurt myself yesterday. I volunteered in October of 2025 for a group called the Hart County Search and Rescue. And it's a bunch of volunteers, regular people that sometimes do very difficult and extraordinary things. And so I feel real privileged to be part of that group. But because of all the snow and ice that we received, our chief put together this last minute training, I guess you could say, with this legend named Bill Mattany, who is a teacher and an inventor and a rescuer over many decades. And he wouldn't refer to himself as a legend. He would refer to himself as a certified asshole. But he's an amazing teacher, and he put together this class that was essentially focused on ice rescue. And I had attended that class all day yesterday, and we were cutting holes in some shallow ponds, and some members of the team were diving in, and and we were trying to drill on ways to get them out of the ice. And so it was a busy day yesterday, and so as cold as it feels today, for probably most people and me on any other day, it actually feels quite warm and comfortable out here. And so I'm happy to be out here. It's very quiet. There's obviously nobody else out when it's this temperature. 15 degrees is, for most people, intolerable, even given how beautiful the sky is. But for me, it's a great day, and I'm really happy to be able to share it with my dog. And unfortunately, Matilda couldn't come. She's pretty solid as far as Frenchies go. She's a sporty Frenchie, but in this temperature, her paws and her heart rate are at risk. And so with Marko and Matilda, whenever I take them out, I always put what is called Musher's Secret, which is like a wax compound that you rub on their paws. So it protects them from the snow and ice accumulation, but maybe even more importantly, it protects them from the salt that they put on roads in commercial and residential areas. And so in the park, it's not a concern, but when we were walking here from the house, it was certainly something that I had to be aware of and try to avoid so that Marko didn't walk through it. But other than that, he's super tolerant of cold weather, and I think is happy to be out here, just he and I, because it was that way for the first 3 years. And so I've been thinking about what I wanted to say in regards to this past week. And I took this training, and I was amongst a group of about 40 first responders, and I went out to my car to grab something, and I slipped really hard on ice right next to the passenger side of my vehicle. And it was the full kind of slip and fall where your legs completely come out from under you, and I landed squarely on my right shoulder, which presents some discomfort holding this phone now, but I worked through it yesterday. But nevertheless, I ended up on the ground, like without any anticipation, without any preparation. 1 minute I was standing, and then the next minute I was experiencing blinding pain, like I actually felt and saw light in my field of view, and I was on the ice. And what hit me in that moment was just this immediate urge to stand right back up. And sure enough, I slipped right back down and hit my knee. So I hit my shoulder first, and then at an impulse and an instinct, I tried to get myself back up, partly to avoid the pain, but also because I felt really dumb. Like, I wear crampons most of the time whenever I'm out in the snow and ice, and I'm wearing them today. They keep me very solid on slick surfaces. But that day, I had them in my car on another pair of boots, and I was just prepping for our classroom session, so I didn't have them on, and I just let my guard down, like most people would do when they're going out to fetch something from their car. It's not like a high alert environment typically. And unexpectedly, I ended up on my side and on my back. And after that second fall, Marko, come, good boy. After that second fall, what I told myself to do was just sit for a moment in the pain. Just feel the pain. Feel where it hurts, and allow it to hurt, and then give yourself just a few seconds to get your bearings. Forget the embarrassment, forget the self-consciousness. Don't worry about if somebody comes out from the station and sees you lying there helpless and hurt. Don't worry about any of that. Just take a moment and breathe and figure out how you can get yourself safely back up. And so I was able to do that after just a few more seconds on the ground. And I went back inside and sat for 2 hours listening to Bill speak about ice rescue techniques and really uncomfortable pain without trying to let anybody else in the room know what had just happened to me. And so I made it through that. Went back out to a shallow pond and did our drills outside. And so the great thing about Bill is he's a hard person, but he loves and cares about people, and he's willing to put himself in harm's way to do so, and is willing to pass his knowledge and his wisdom on to others that share those same values. And so the people on my search and rescue team and the half a dozen or more fire departments and other search and rescue teams that were there that day come from very diverse backgrounds, but they are all willing to put themselves at risk to help other people that they don't know. And so I feel very fortunate to have spent the day with them and to be a part of this team and to get to know them. But it made me think about a couple things. And the first is our reliance and, in some cases, dependence on tools. And our belief that even when they're not present, that they'll be there for you. And I think about that a lot because everybody's using and contemplating and thinking about the ramifications of artificial intelligence. And I can tell you for myself that I feel very fortunate to live in a time such as this. It is the technology that a person with my personality that tends to overthink and perseverate and obsess and allow intrusive thoughts to get in the way of productive action. Can really find useful if employed in the proper way. And I don't know what that proper way is, but I see the opportunity and I'm doing my very best to use it well. And one of the ways that I learned to use it was from a man named Ty Lopez, who's an entrepreneur and a social media influencer. And I'd watched a reel of his where he said, ask your AI to ask you questions that it knows you do not know the answer to, and to ask them in sequence without telling you beforehand what those questions are. And it was mostly related to your personality, the way you think, with the goal of giving the algorithm some insight into your personality based on what it might know about your pattern of conversations, or based on other variables that you aren't aware of. And so I did that. I followed those prompts, and the results were really illuminating. And ever since, I've been approaching my interactions with AI in a way that I think is more productive, more personalized, more relevant to my experience. And maybe one of the reasons why it wasn't initially, it was giving me less than intimate answers that didn't land quite well, was because I was very suspicious. And I remain suspicious, just not as suspicious of the technology at first. And I think we're right to be suspicious, those that are. And I'm still quite cautious, but the trade-off and the upside for me has been huge in terms of framing my thoughts coherently, allowing me to read back a structured summary of ramblings and observations, and essentially use the output to generate a plan for productive action. And so I feel very fortunate that a technology such as AI is available to us. Hey, Marko. Hey. He's got an incredible nose, this dog. And so he found something that he's very interested in. And let me just help him get it out of his mouth real quick to make sure he's not eating anything that could be harmful to him. All right, buddy, let's go. Hey. Leave it. Let's go. Marko. Leave it. Come on. And so the suspicion remains, but the utility for me outweighs the fear. And I feel that as far as tools go, it is the most powerful tool that I've come across in my life, and provides me with the greatest opportunity to amplify both my productivity and my understanding of myself and the world. And so one of the things that relates to the accident that I had yesterday was an over-reliance on tools. I basically became overly confident about my ability to walk on ice because most of the time I'm wearing crampons. I was 30 feet away from a building with 40 first responders, so I never assumed that something like that could happen that would rattle me and make me panic. And I also felt very embarrassed at being vulnerable and allowing myself to fall like that. And part of that was a result of me just assuming that I had access to a tool that I didn't at the time. And so that's something that I'm trying to be very careful of, is not overusing AI, and making sure that when I do, that I'm scrutinizing the results it gives me and being a true partner in formulating my own decisions based on its output. And so that's the other part that I've been thinking a lot about AI, and just the way people frame it, what we call it, artificial intelligence, and I could see how that was an apt description of it in the early days, but at least the way I use it is much more collaborative. And I don't see it as artificial at all. I don't think that anything that involves human agency and human input can truly be regarded as artificial. And if it is, then all things are an artifice. And if all things are an artifice, then there's not as much reason to fear this tool as any other. My ability to walk on ice would be severely hampered without crampons, and so I choose to use it. My ability to understand my own thought process is seriously improved by the use of AI, and so I'm choosing to use it. And I think a much more helpful way to think of the technology is collaborative, that it augments our ability to be productive and be insightful. And it's not a new thought. There's been many thinkers on artificial intelligence. This thought has come around many times, but it's mostly been framed from a productivity or corporate management lens, whereas I think that it can have a very intimate, personal use if we start to think of it as collaborative and additive rather than something artificial or external to ourselves that we need to guard against or fear. Now, time will tell. I could absolutely be proven incorrect. I'm still very naive and new to using this technology, but I'm actually very optimistic too that for someone like me, it can be both a useful tool and a useful record of my own interaction with the things and events that I experience in this world.